sometimes I think the little forced marketing is stupid. Like in in Infinity War, where you see the Rocket Mortgage sign just fly through, and like everybody drives an Audi for some reason,
Right.
that type of shit. But this I thought was very good, like brand inclusion. Like they just he works at an old McDonald's.
Right.
That was cool.
Like the only good thing I liked about Captain Marvel was when she crash landed in the blockbusters.
All right. Welcome to another episode of Only Comics. I'm Mike. This is Adrian.
Good morning. Good morning.
What's up, man? How we doing?
Nice fall. Fall is coming. Fall
Yes,
is here.
it is, bro.
Fall is here, man. So I'm happy. I'm happy.
Little crisp, little cold,
Right.
little brisk.
I'm in a long sleeve for the first time in this year. I
Yep.
think.
Still got the shorts though.
Oh, yeah,
got
still
of
rocking the
course.
shorts.
Always. Like I have a sweatshirt, but I still got my shorts. Anyway, Only Comics. Got a lot going on today. Adrian, Loki episode 2, season 2 dropped.
Yep.
So we're gonna go through that later on. We got some news. You have your hidden gem segment, and then our news segment, Agree to Disagree. So I went back last week, Adrian. I watched the footage, and there were 2 disagrees on your part last week. So we'll see. We'll see what I got in store for you this week.
All right.
Anyways, let's hop right into our news. We got a couple segments this week. Not a whole lot going on in comic news. There's kind of a lot like on the horizon. There's the Marvels. I don't know if you've seen much of this marketing lately. I don't. I kind of feel like I did with some of the recent DC movies. Like, where's the marketing? So it comes out. I don't even know when it comes out. Do you even know?
No.
A couple weeks, I believe. But that's their next big project, and we're kind of 2 episodes into Loki season 2 right now. But there's been some MCU news this week. So Daredevil, Daredevil Born Again. This is the rebooted show that the MCU is working on. And now this leads me to a question, Adrian. You've seen the Netflix series, the Daredevil, Punisher, all these shows, right?
Yep.
We were told that those are part of the MCU, right?
Okay.
And there's some aspects of the show, they make reference to like the first Avengers movie. They make reference to the Battle in New York, but you never see any crossover.
Right.
Outside of when Daredevil shows up in the Spider-Man movie,
Right.
No Way Home, where he's his attorney, right? I think that's probably the only crossover we've seen. Then we've seen him show up in She-Hulk. Anyways, they're rebooting that show. So would that mean that if they're rebooting this show and this Daredevil now takes place within the MCU, does that now then negate all the other shit from the past?
Who knows? I mean, I think one of the main reasons for creating the MCU was to confuse the reader. It seems, they can do whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
And then they'll blame it on us that we don't understand
yeah.
what they're doing. So who knows what the whole point of this is? I just hope it's entertaining. I hope it's a good roller coaster ride, and we'll see.
Now, to that, it has been a roller coaster ride so far with this show. So the news that dropped this week. So Daredevil Born Again was complete reboot. They had already started writing on it, or started writing the show. They plan to do 18 episodes. Now, Marvel has this kind of reputation for filming everything once, just getting it done, and then fixing whatever they don't like in reshoots.
Okay.
You always hear about, Black Panther had, whatever, this much money spent on reshoots, right? And they've done that for their movies. Now, they've tried that with their shows, but I guess what Kevin Feige said was that's not working. So he saw a couple episodes of this show, and then he fired 2 writers.
Right.
Which I'm like, good. There should be more of this in this industry.
Right.
We wouldn't have things like The Flash. we wouldn't have those things. We wouldn't have movies like Black Panther 2 that are so uneven. We wouldn't have Ant-Man Quantumania if more of this happened, if they looked into it before the damn thing was done, because you can't fix a whole movie with reshoots.
Right.
You're going to go down and shoot, what, a handful of scenes, whatever, but you're not going to reshoot the entire movie. So I'm all for this. I love this decision. Kudos to Kevin Feige, who he's been up for our Buster Award at times, Adrian. I don't know if we've ever named him, but he's been pretty damn close some of these weeks.
Right.
But this one, I'm 100% on his side. I'm glad he fired the writers, and I wish they would do more of this and not just think like, oh, not just coast.
Right.
What do you? How do you feel about this?
Well, two things come to mind for me. So they're both business things. One is JIT, or just in time. It usually is synonymous with processing, getting things out to customers just in the nick of time.
Yeah.
Things like that. In other words, you don't spend so much time storing things or creating things for future. What you do is you kind of streamline your process for the demand. Now, it sounds like that they are not using the just-in-time process here.
Right.
So they're creating these movies or creating these shows, stepping back and looking at them and said, okay, let's revise some things, which is cool.
Yeah.
I'm down for that. But then that goes into the second part of this, marketing. So they don't do a lot of marketing. It seems they're doing less and less and less, which affects box office things. So here's the thing. If you reduce marketing, if you reduce your expenses in marketing, you will not see as much revenue income.
Right.
So if you're going to do this, well, let's build and tear down and rebuild, which affects your ability to market, then don't cry about the box office numbers. That's all I got to say about that. I mean, I'm cool with the revision, and I'm glad that there's like a second look before he rolled it out to the fans.
Right.
But don't do this thing over here and then complain about the other thing over here. So these rewrites and these firings, they're expensive,
right,
and it will affect your bottom line. So
so you're saying if doing this, it's going to cost more to produce a show.
Right.
It might eat into the marketing budget, which
Correct.
then is going to kill ruin the
Correct.
whole project anyways.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many moving parts to releasing. A lot of it, sometimes those fans just think like, oh, it's just, you write the movie and they film it and it's out. Like, no, there's all types of planning and there's marketing. Right. Even, they've changed the format, I guess, or this is changing the format of how they shoot their shows. Typically shows, when you shoot a show, you shoot the pilot episode first.
Right.
And then you let the studio review that, and then it gets commissioned for a season. Well, Marvel, they don't use that formula because everything's pretty much in-house, right? It's their own studio. So they're just green-lighting the entire show to be shot, and no one's seeing one episode to even see if, hey, this is a good show. Should we move on with the others? Sometimes, like, just because an idea looks good on paper doesn't mean it's going to look good, when it's live.
Isn't that rather irresponsible?
You think so?
As a business,
but now it's biting them in their asses. It's like it's like anything. You strike gold, and then you think that I can just use this formula on everything. Just because it worked with a handful of the shows doesn't mean every show should be done that way. So I think this is a good thing that they fired a couple people and shifted the direction. Like, imagine if they did that with Secret Invasion. We probably would have had a much better ending.
Right?
Maybe we wouldn't have had Gaia.
Yeah.
So anyway, next up, Kevin Feige. He's in the news twice this week. So he made a comment recently, Adrian. He said that the MCU has barely scratched the surface of Marvel's potential. Okay, he was doing an interview with Variety. He's been all over. He's in GQ a few weeks ago. Now he's in Variety. I mean, I don't. Maybe he should spend more time working on the movies.
Right? Yeah. I guess these directors are tired of being behind the scenes.
Yeah.
They want to be out. They want to be the Tony Stark.
They want to be
They want to be the Playboy.
Maybe we should cast him as Wolverine.
Right? Or not.
You don't think Kevin Feige could play Wolverine?
I'm doubtful.
You're doubtful. Hey, crazier things have happened.
Oh, right.
But
you could have a Nick Cage Superman.
That was very close. Yep, that was very close to happening. Anyways, he was doing an interview, and they were asking him. There's 32 movies. You were saying last week, like, how you can't believe how much of this content we watched even on our own before starting this, right?
Right.
32 movies, dude, just in the MCU.
Wow.
And at 2 to 3 hours a clip, bro. That's a lot of content.
Right.
So, and I guess they were asked some questions along the lines of, like, the quality now and kind of, like, where it's at. Like, what they achieved was amazing, but it's kind of like that first story's ended, right? That Infinity Stone story. And we've not seen that same level of excitement with this multiversal one yet, right? I mean, that's fair.
Right.
So they're asking him about that, and what he says is, hey, even after 32 movies, it feels like we barely scratched the surface, which I do agree. Because of how extensive, you said this plenty of times here, how many stories they have in the comic book world, right? To pull from. Right. They've only pulled from a handful of stories with the MCU.
Right. And the thing about these stories is that, a lot of the comics, at least, when I was growing up, that stuff is based on things that happened during that era or things that happened in the past or things that even happened in the future based on things that were going on in current or the past. Right. Now, fast forward, we're in this, fast food mentality, with AI and 3D machines printing houses and things like that. I mean, there's even more stories. So the content is out there, and I definitely agree with them that, they're barely scratching the surface. And they're barely scratching the surface, not only in the MCU, but also the DCU.
Oh, absolutely.
And I even think there's room for some of these other comics to come out. Dark Comics. So these, these sideline comic books that really isn't as famous as Marvel and DC. Yeah. I think there's plenty of opportunity for their characters.
Absolutely.
So there's plenty of pie for everybody.
Right. Well, we talked about the Spawn movie last week. There you go, right there. That's not DC or Marvel. Right. And that's just one. There's plenty of others. I mean, that Image, Dark Horse, the whole deal. But yeah, I agree with Kevin Feige. Now, I think, we've touched on this other rumor here a handful of times, Adrian, the rumor that Avengers Secret Wars is going to be almost a soft reset for the MCU, which would allow them to bring back some of these characters that the actors either aged out. You talk about that a lot, like you call them, as you coined them, the Crypt Keepers. Right. But they could bring back those characters with different actors, or even some of these characters that have been retired / killed off. Like they could bring back a Tony Stark new version, soft reboot, different universe, something to where it's not Robert Downey or nobody. Right. Which I think would be a good thing. I think it would freshen this up. Do you like that idea, or do you think, no, hey, continue this story and just leave the dead characters dead?
No, I think there's because comic book characters are eternal. For the most part, unless they intentionally kill them off. Right. I think there's an opportunity to continuously reboot these characters, probably once a decade. Yeah. However, don't continue to retell their origin story. Right. Have some continuity in that you keep the character moving forward, but not keep rebooting their story. I don't want to see Superman escape from Krypton again. Exactly. Batman and his parents, and so on and so forth. But so there's if you when Kevin Feige says that the MCU is just barely scratching the surface, you can't say that, but you keep rebooting origins. Keep the character, keep the content moving forward, and you'll be successful. There's plenty of stuff out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think they can look at what they did with the Batman movie recently, started that in year 2, where it's still a new Batman, but we didn't have to go through the whole origin again, right? Like, we didn't have to see Martha and Thomas Wayne gunned down in the alley. Now, would you rather, Adrian, see that happen again or watch Ezra Miller play the Flash again?
I'd rather watch, Martha and... Everybody get killed all over again. Uncle Ben, Martha, Jonathan Kent die of heart attack. The Waynes, whatever. Have them come back as zombies. Anything
even
other than
Barry
watch
Allen's
the Flash.
mom.
Even Barry Allen's mom. Just not Ezra.
Just not the Ezra version.
Yeah, can't do it.
All right, I just want to make sure your opinion hasn't changed.
No. And by the way, this is a Shazam hat, not a Flash hat.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm just saying.
Just pointing it out. But yeah, I like this idea. I do. And I to your point, I think that because we were 15 years into this MCU, and I think the end game was close to like around the 10-year mark. So to your point of the decade, I think that's good. I think that's plenty of time to tell these stories. Right. And also, to your point about not telling the origins again, I also don't want them to tell the same stories again.
Exactly.
Like, we've seen Dark Phoenix twice now, and y'all fucked it up twice. Just leave it alone. As much as I love that story,
right.
I mean, the comic's great. That's
Right.
from like your era of X-Men art, right? I think Claremont wrote that maybe, but that's a great story that they fumbled both times on screen. So just leave it alone.
Right.
Try something else.
And also, since the movies take much longer than the show, well, I'm assuming that the movies take longer to produce and get out and so on and so forth. Maybe it's the same amount of time. Don't beat me up.
We're not experts.
But have the continuity on the big screen. Keep the character moving forward on the big screen.
Yeah.
And then have either the TV shows, the series, do the cutbacks and the switch offs and, kind of like what Secret Invasion attempted to do very poorly.
Yeah.
But, keep the main stuff on the big screen. Keep the switchbacks and the history and the deep dive in the TV shows, and then you can do the spinoffs and the animations and things like that. I think that'll work, but I think every 10 years, sure, you can reprise Tony. They had an animated Iron Man I thought was very good.
Right.
When he was a teenager, even coming up with Rhodey and Pepper and all that kind of stuff. That was entertaining to me.
Yep.
So there's a lot of different things that you can do, but definitely don't keep retelling the same stories, which starts out with the death of somebody, which puts Bruce in this whatever mental state that he is, that he's always Batman and Bruce is just a sidekick.
Yeah. No, it's like it's like that old Disney joke that like every movie has to start with the character's parents dying. Like maybe now that Marvel's under Disney, like they're just going to continue that.
Right.
They have to. Know. But anyway, all right. Next up, last piece of news this week. James Gunn reveals 3 actors who will continue playing their DC characters in the DCU. And this is, we talked about a rumor last week, Adrian, where what was it? Ben Affleck and Gal Gadot and Jason Momoa were rumored to be casted in different roles in the DCU, right? We're not going to see Ben as Batman again. We won't see Jason Momoa as Aquaman again. They're going to play somebody else. But Jason Gunn confirmed 3 actors that will be reprising their roles. So we have John Cena as Peacemaker.
Yep.
Which I couldn't get through that show. Did you watch that?
I did.
Did you like
actually? It was entertaining enough to not switch away. It was just stupid enough to be entertaining but not offensive.
Okay.
I couldn't find. I found myself not being able to turn away from that big ass vein in John Cena's arm.
It is hard, yeah.
So it was interesting, but not disgusting.
Okay.
Like the Ezra Miller Flash thing.
Yeah.
So I got through like the first season.
Okay.
The last episode was kind of atrocious with the sing along, but whatever.
Yeah, I saw bits and pieces, and I was like, I don't really, but maybe I'll give it another shot, But anyways, John Cena's gonna play Peacemaker again.
Okay.
And then my man Zolo, Mariduena, maybe that's how you say it, will reprise the Blue Beetle character, which we kind of knew that.
Okay.
And then Viola Davis is gonna reprise Amanda Waller.
Sure. She's nailed that.
She's killed that. So I'm all for 2 of these. Mm-hmm. The John Cena's Peacemaker is more just I don't really want to see the Peacemaker character after, Now, do you think that with this change, well, I guess we really don't know what's going on with the DCU, but what we've heard with the younger Superman, Batman having a Bat family established, that's kind of the universe going to be set in. Does this John Cena Peacemaker fit this, this I guess foundation that we've heard about, or how do you feel about that?
No, matter of fact, Peacemaker shouldn't even be mentioned in the same sentence as Batman and Superman. He was also in the character, not John Cena. I'm not. This is not about John Cena. This is about the Peacemaker character. He was in the last Suicide Squad.
Yep.
And that was pretty bad.
Yeah,
too.
I didn't like that one.
So who knows? But definitely Superman, Batman, Peacemaker. There should be separate sentences, separate paragraphs.
Yeah. Yep. No, I'm with you. But no, Viola Davis is Waller. I like that. Now, did you know they're going to produce a Waller TV show series?
I think I heard that. I think I heard that.
Yeah. Now, Waller, my exposure to the character has been through the Suicide Squad movies, unfortunately, and just all the, I guess the animated, the live action movies is where I've seen her, and there's been a handful of comics where I've seen her in, so I don't know the extent of that character. Now, do you think that's a strong enough character to carry a series?
I think that she is strong enough to carry a series. I don't think the series would be successful. Because I don't think she's like a Lex Luthor.
Okay.
He is so powerful in himself, in his own wealth and his ability to go behind the scenes and be involved in all this stuff.
Yeah.
Amanda Waller is that same level of character. She's so intense. She would be these human characters with their power would be the equivalent of a binary or Dark Phoenix with power. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So they have that much power as a human. In other words, they shouldn't be seen all the time.
Mm-hmm.
They should, come in, pop out, do some stuff, and then move about. There shouldn't be a direct, because I think it would diminish their impact.
Yeah.
In the comics, if they were to have a series, like you wouldn't want to have a series about Galactus, you wouldn't want to have a series about Dark Phoenix or any of these superpower beings. I don't think you should have a series about Amanda Waller, the chick from Britain. Lex Luthor, that level of human intellect and power. I don't think it'll be successful.
Yeah, kind of dilute the character.
Yeah.
Like just bring it almost like by Star Wars reference, but Han Solo, the character prior to that movie being released, great character.
Right.
Mystique about him. You don't really know his background. Then they have to tell you everything.
Right.
He's still Han Solo, but it's like, do I really need to see all that?
Right.
Like part of the unknown is like, I think that's what kind of, one of the downfalls of Secret Invasion among many is the fact that now that level of mystique has been removed from Nick Fury.
Absolutely. I mean, I was cringing, watching him crying on the bench and going through these waves of emotion and all that kind of stuff. And in your mind, that as a human, people will go through those things, but you don't necessarily want to see it. I mean, you put up your own mental blocks about how much you think this character cries,
right? But
then they show you, and it's like, oh, dude, you just messed it up for everybody.
Yeah. Some things just need to be left to the imagination.
Exactly.
It's like where it makes sense. I mean, I was here a couple weeks ago talking about the Batman movie with Robert Pattinson brooding around, and I liked it because, his parents were killed in front of him, and, he's working through that. But this is a Nick Fury we've seen for over a decade,
right?
And we've seen this mystique, and he's also not the main character. So having those sideline characters, sometimes when they get the main character treatment, I think it ruins their allure.
Right. Absolutely. I agree.
So anyway. That's the deal with the news this week. There's really no flat out buster here, Adrian.
No.
I think if anyone, I'd have to give the Buster Award to the writers that got fired.
Well, we don't know why they got fired, other than because they are okay. So when you're a team player, when you're playing a sport, and you have a coach, or in the business world when you're an employee and you have a manager, you come in with raw skill. In this case, your ability to write. You get your direction from someone. They are getting paid to convey to you what they want from your skill level. You just can't walk into someplace and assume that you, unlike some of the dicks in the past, assume that the universe understands what's in their head, and it's their fault. It's our fault that we don't understand what they're thinking about. So it's the manager's or the coach's responsibility to massage this talent to get the output that he or she wants. If they don't get that output, then maybe there's a retry. We don't know if this guy has tried to show them and they just don't get it. They're constantly butting heads, or if he decided that, well, this is the first rewrite, you didn't get what I was thinking, so now I'm just going to fire you. So I'm on the fence about them being the buster. Okay. It's unfortunate that anybody when anybody loses their job. Yeah. But we just don't know. So I'm kind of on the fence about the buster thing for the writers. But I'm also in favor of, hey, we can just skip the buster for this week.
No buster this week. It'll be the first week ever on Right Comics where there's no buster. I to your point, we don't know the other side. Right. I still say, there's a reason they got fired. Sure. But, as someone who's done a lot of firing in my lifetime, there's a reason they got fired. But I'm also I'm cool with skipping the buster 1 week. So next week, hopefully we have a buster for you. Now, I know what we do have this week, Adrian. We have a hidden gem. Okay. So I'm going to turn it over to you. Your segment, Hidden Gem. This is where we talk about some of these obscure, not the most popular comic characters. Right. Fair, right? The ones that also, I think a theme of your picks has been characters that we've not seen portrayed in the MCU or the DCEU. Right. And characters that have not been done justice on screen, pretty much. It's like you've had Dr. Doom on here. We've seen him on screen. Right. But I don't think they did him justice. No. You didn't have Iron Man on here. Right. So, Adrian, hidden gem. What do we got?
Hidden gem for this week is related to the X-Men, literally. This character, he came on my screen when I started reading comics back in, I don't know what year it was, but when I first started picking up comics. Okay. And
how old were you when you first started reading comics?
When I first started reading comics, I was probably 15. Okay. Right. So I had eventually I had a pile of them. I would walk home from school and swing by the pharmacy. They had like a spin rack. You can just walk in there and look at the comics and stuff like that. And hopefully you got through most of them before they chase you out for reading in the store. Yep. But this character came on my radar in the X-Men. The character this week is Havok. This is Alex Summers, Scott Summers' brother. There's a lot of trauma in comics, apparently. Yep. So this guy, he and his brother, so Alex and Scott were on a plane with their father, who was a Air Force person. They were on their own private plane, and they got attacked by basically aliens. And the boys were thrown off the airplane by their parents in order to save them. They landed on this island. They were rescued. The mother was eventually taken hostage and eventually killed. But in the meantime, her unborn fetus was harvested by this alien who became another, mutant. But Scott and Alex, they got thrown into the system, and they were separated. Their mutant powers came out individually, separate from each other at some later time. And then they eventually hooked back up through Xavier, the X-Men, so on and so forth. They realized they were their brothers and so on and so forth. And then they had this third one somewhere out in the universe. So like, Batman, like Superman, like Spider-Man, a lot of trauma early on in their life. And it kind of shaped them as an adult. So Havok has the ability to absorb, and he absorbs cosmic energy constantly through his body, kind of like Superman stores solar energy. He absorbs cosmic energy, and he can release that energy. Now, how he got the name Havok was that initially he was unable to control his power. It would just release, and it was like super destructive. Yeah. I've seen comics where he's, put holes in mountains. Yeah. One time I forget what kicked it off, but he had to run outside because he felt this energy buildup happening. And when he released it, it was like a laser beam being shot off. So you can imagine a laser beam like the size of the Empire State Building, right? And when he released the energy, he kind of like passed out, but he was in the middle of a glass field because he had turned everything around him to this glass. Wow. So very, very powerful. Matter of fact, his brother, Scott, they have kind of the same powers, but not really. So Havok's power is absorbing cosmic energy and releasing it, but it's not concussive force. It's like a heat plasma.
Okay.
So whatever it touches, it destroys, breaks it down, so on and so forth. However, Scott's, who is Cyclops, right? He releases his energy out of his eyes. Havok releases his energy out of his entire body, omnidirectionally. It's actually more taxing for him to release it, on purpose, like through his arms or his feet, which he can use it to fly, right? But Scott and Alex, they cancel each other's powers out. So Havok can't hurt Scott and Scott can't hurt Havok.
Really?
Interestingly, right? So, but obviously Scott went on to have more control over his power than, even though he doesn't really, he uses a tool, the visor to control his power. Alex uses his suit to control his power, right? So they really both don't have control over their power. Like Scott can look at somebody, and even though Jean psychically blocked his power one time, she was like, I want to kiss you, and he's like, I want to look in your eyes, and Scott was like, no, like a little bitch. No. So, but she held his optic blast back without his visor.
Which we saw in, speaking of the shitty Dark Phoenix movies, I think it was not First Class, the third X-Men movie, Last Stand.
Okay.
Where that she does the same thing, where she's like, open your eyes or whatever. So they pulled it from the comics.
Right, right, which is cool.
Yeah.
So imagine the power. So if you can like shoot something from your body that can destroy mountains, imagine the power that someone like a Jean Grey would have, even before the Dark Phoenix stuff.
Right.
The power that she would have in order to hold that kind of stuff back. So Alex, he's considered an alpha level mutant. His power would be something akin to Superman's strength, which is an alpha level, which they consider that over like 100 or 1,000 tons or something like that.
Okay.
So very powerful character, very complex character, very, a lot of trauma coming about. So basically that's his only power, to be able to release this cosmic energy in a form of, omnidirectionally or directionally, even though directionally it is more taxing, physically taxing on his body. If he expends it, it takes him like almost a whole day, like 16, 18 hours or whatever to recover.
Yeah.
Kind of like Superman. Well, not kind of like Superman. Superman can absorb rather fast, but it takes time to build back up. It's not like a continuous thing that he can just do forever and ever and ever. Outside of that, he's been trained by Wolverine, combatant. So he's a skilled fighter, intelligent. He's doctorate in, I think, geochemistry or something like that along those lines. So he's a pretty smart kid. He's had relationship with other mutants. I mean, there's been different variants of him, but in the end, they all die. So I think kind of that's why he hasn't been portrayed continuously.
Yeah.
But when you go back to some of our old hidden gems like Firestorm, who are equally as powerful or actually more powerful than this character, and still haven't been portrayed in the DCU or the MCU. So I just think it's, bad decisions on, the people that put these characters out to portray these different people, as opposed to whether they are dead or not, So Havok, he was, for me, kind of iconic with the X-Men. He was part of the X-Men. Then he went on to lead the X Factor. Very powerful mutant, but another one of those characters that, kind of sidelined. He did come out a few times in the movies.
What'd you think of his portrayal?
It was like most of these characters, they do kind of a piss poor portrayal of them, because it's almost like they want to bring them out as just kind of introduce, just kind of throw them out there and let's see what sticks.
Yeah.
They don't really put any thought into what this character means, what he or she is capable of doing, and ultimately how they're going to fit. They just kind of, take somebody and like, oh, let's just drop them in there.
Yeah.
So I don't think they did a good job of portraying the character or the power set.
Yeah.
I think he could be a good miniseries, unlike a Secret Invasion, but like a Secret Invasion.
Right.
6, 7 episode, kind of a, not even like a long drawn out movie.
Yeah.
Like kind of origin story.
Yeah.
I think that would be a good thing. Matter of fact, I think they could do that for a lot of people.
Right.
So but that's it. Havok, Scott Summers, brother, Scott, of course, being Cyclops, and a very powerful dude. A lot of trauma, and ultimately he dies.
What now? When does that happen? Who kills him?
I don't recall who kills him. There's one variant where the son of I can't think of it right now. The son of somebody killed him.
Okay.
There's the New Exiles. There's Miss Tech. He was in Marvel Zombies. Who at the end, beginning of the series. I get back to you on that.
When you were talking about his power, I do recall, he was in the X-Men First Class series.
Uh-huh.
It was First Class, and then Days of Future Past, and then Apocalypse. Right. I don't think he was in Dark Phoenix. But we saw some of that where you were talking about the uncontrollable power. Like we remember when he's at the X-Mansion, he's trying to destroy, I don't know if it's like the trees or something, and he's like taking everything out, and they got him like. They bring him to like this big chamber almost, so he can't set shit on fire, I guess. But we saw some of that there. But I didn't know how traumatic their childhood, all that stuff was until you broke down his origin here. Because one of the things I've never seen like a Cyclops origin. Right. I feel like every time my experience with X-Men, he's already an established character.
Right.
The way that story you were talking about, that would be a interesting way to bring X-Men into the MCU. Like, I don't think we should just land on the X-Men team. I think we should see them being formed.
Right.
We've not really seen that in movies yet. It's almost like the opposite of what we're saying about, like, I don't want to see Spider-Man's origin again.
Right.
I don't want to see Wolverine's origin again or Batman's, but I've never seen the origins to these characters on screen.
Right.
We saw the First Class version with where it was just kind of a reimagining. I don't want to see that. I want to see where these other characters, the main line, the Cyclops, the Rogue, the Jeans, the Gambits, like that main that core X-Men team. But there's another character. So their father, Corsair, was actually he survived, and then Cyclops finds out later on. Like he's like out in space and shit.
Right.
And I want to say it's part of the Dark Phoenix or the Phoenix story maybe or something. It's when the X-Men are fucking around in space, right? But then he finds out after they've kind of had some interaction that that's his father. How do you feel about that character, Corsair?
I liked him. He was like this spacefaring, swashbuckling dude.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. That was interesting in like Luke finds out that Darth Vader is his father.
Right.
Or Quicksilver and Wanda finds out that Magneto is their father. So, you have all these twisted, things that come up from the past. I like that. Even somebody like Corsair, that would be an interesting like little mini, kind of tie all these things together. I think, like I said, I think they should have like the Disney and the Netflixes. Is that what Netflix is?
You just made it up. It is now.
The Netflix platforms do these little deep dive miniseries. I like to see something on Kurt Wagner. I forget Nightcrawler.
Yeah.
The Angel / Archangel. I mean, do the miniseries there. And leave the big screen for the the major interactions and stuff.
Hey, I'd be down with that if the MCU did a series of X-Men shows on Disney Plus.
Oh yeah,
these one-offs where they're not connected yet. Like,
right.
I wish they would remember how during the first phase the first phase of the first saga, they didn't rush anything.
Right.
They gave everything time to simmer. You know, we had Iron Man, we had Iron Man 2 before there was an Avengers movie.
Right.
You know, and now it's like everyone's in everyone's movie.
Well, it's this whole AI, like I said, the whole AI 3D printed houses,
Yep.
that kind of stuff. They're trying to, instead of taking the time and having, it's like having the Old Testament and New Testament being taught at the same time.
Right.
So the Old Testament is the traditional stuff, how they make movies, push it out, keep doing that, but you got to spend money. Use that research and development budget. That's your, AI and 3D printers.
Yeah.
You develop this stuff alongside the Old Testament so that once it gets to the point that it's mature and functioning, then you can integrate Old and New Testament, then eventually getting rid of Old Testament. You just don't, as soon as the new toy comes out, oh, we got AI now, so let's fire everybody. Right. So you don't just immediately implement, New Testament. It's not going to work.
Right. Absolutely. Well, there's our hidden gem. If you like that, check out the hidden gem playlist where you can see more of Adrian breaking down these obscure kind of characters who've not been done justice, I guess is kind of the theme.
Right.
But I would be all for seeing Havok, a version of Havok in this X-Men launch in the MCU. So we gave him a story right there. We've given them like pitches here on Only Comics.
Oh, absolutely.
So there's another one for you. The Cyclops, Havok, Corsair story. You could use that to start your X-Men story.
Right.
Another one.
The Corsair story I could see as being like almost like a Guardians of the Galaxy, So it could be actually that level.
Absolutely. All right. Next up, Adrian. Agree to disagree. All right. So this is a segment where we have some fun here because we've been accused of telling the truth on Only Comics.
Right.
We've been accused of having hot takes, opinions. We've even been accused, Adrian, of saying things just to stir people up. Now that part's not true,
right?
Because I guess our normal opinions just stir people up.
I guess.
Now we also don't always agree, but unlike some of those folks out there, I don't get angry when someone doesn't agree with me. And neither do you. So far, anyway.
Oh, so far.
Right. So we're going to test that theory today. We're going to go with our new segment, Agree to Disagree. This is where I rapid fire 10 questions or 10 opinions of my own at Adrian. And Adrian tells me if he agrees or disagrees, if he needs to throw a flag on any of these. So let's do it. You ready?
Yep.
All right. Number one. In the MCU, Loki is a better character than Thor.
Better. I would say yes.
Okay, agree.
At least he's more interesting than Thor.
Okay. 2, The Matrix is highly overrated.
Disagree.
Got him, damn it. There should be no restoration of the Snyderverse.
Agree.
Number 4, the Hush reveal in the comics was better than the animated movie.
The Hush reveal in the comics was agree.
Number 5, the DCU will fail under James Gunn.
I want to say agree, but I disagree.
Okay, there's 2. Number 6, in a battle, the Justice League would defeat the Avengers.
Agree.
Number 7, Logan is a better movie than The Dark Knight.
Agree.
Wow. Number 8, Superman is a boring character.
Agree.
Number 9, Smart Hulk ruined the Hulk.
Agree.
Number 10, the Marvels will bomb at the box office.
Agree.
Wow. So we got 2 disagrees.
What do we disagree on?
You disagree that The Matrix is overrated. And we disagreed about the DCU failing under James Gunn.
All right, so The Matrix.
Yeah.
Even though that came out quickly, so I love the first Matrix movie.
Yep.
So is it overrated? Yes, I will agree with you that it's overrated in its entirety.
Okay.
However, my pause was the first one because that was just evolutionary when it comes to mind bends in the cinema. But is it overrated? Because 2 and 3 was just atrocious.
Oh, you talking about as a whole?
As a whole,
okay. I'm
yes.
talking about the first movie.
Oh, no.
Okay,
the first movie was not overrated, so I completely disagree with you on that one.
I'm part of this unique small segment of the population, Adrian. I don't like The Matrix, and I've never seen Game of Thrones. Very unique. Yes, very unique. Absolutely. So if anyone out there is with me now I've seen The Matrix, I don't like it. I've tried to watch. It's like it's like a banana to me. Okay, so this is personal information here. I don't like bananas. Never have. Never will.
Right.
Every once in a while though, I'll try it again. Because you just you never know. I'm like, did I miss something? Did I have the wrong banana? You know what I mean? It's like trying to rewatch a show. Like I forget which one you were talking about earlier, but I will Peacemaker. Yep. Like I will try to rewatch it now.
Right. It's almost like mine trying to rewatch Moon Knight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Same deal. So every about 5 years or so, maybe more. I've probably done this 2 or 3 times in my life. I've tried to rewatch The Matrix, and I rewatch it, and I get done with it, and I still go, "That's it." So I'm just, hey, maybe I'm wrong, but that's my opinion.
So I can kind of understand where you're coming from because you're younger than me.
Yep.
So when I saw it, it was evolutionary in the movies because of its complexity.
Okay.
Right. Coming from a time when I've had a few more years to stew on this world than you have.
Right.
So I see things through a different lens.
Yep.
So you've been exposed to more mind-bending things at a younger age.
Right.
So my mind is pretty much die-cast into a certain, going down a certain tunnel. Mm-hmm. And your mind, I believe, is a little bit more accepting. And you also got into comics when your mind was, younger, when the comics were different. I'll put it that way.
Sure, yeah.
So you were exposed to more stuff at a younger age than I was.
Yeah.
So to me, what was evolutionary maybe it's McDonald's.
Right.
So I can kind of understand it, but still, it is definitely not overrated.
Got it. It's like the way you're talking about that reminds me of Avatar.
Right.
Where same deal. At the time, great movie. Mm-hmm. Right. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad movie now, but it was revolutionary. The special effects, we've never seen anything like that. How real everything looked. And then you go through this decade of the MCU,
right?
DCU, where I mean, for whatever we give both of these cinematic universes a lot of critique on here because we're big fans, but we cannot deny the level of just detail, CGI, all this stuff that they've done on screen. They've taken everything to the next level,
right?
So seeing all that stuff, going back and watching Avatar 1 today, you go, that's not that impressive.
Exactly.
But at the time it was. So I see what you're saying.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's just something about it, man. Never going to go there. So,
okay.
And Game of Thrones, I tried to watch the first episode and I couldn't get through it. I was like, nope, not for me.
Again, for an old head like me, you got to think about how people think or thought about power. I think about power probably different than the way you think about power.
Okay.
I think about management differently the way you think about management. Mm-hmm. So, and that's okay. Again, like you said, we not, pulling. I was going to say pull each other's hair out, but I don't. That's already gone, bro. Tugging at each other's beards and stuff. We have a different mindset, which is why one of the reasons why I think this dynamic works.
Right.
We come at this thing from a different point of view, but we agree or disagree.
Right.
So. But I do agree with you that going back and watching, and that's probably why Avatar 2 sucked so bad for me. Dude. We've seen so much.
Yeah.
The movies and stuff like that have just opened our eyes to so much tech and possibilities. It's just I just saw Avatar 2 as a war movie. I mean, you might as well have been watching World War II or something. For me, it was just garbage. So.
Right.
I don't know. It's different.
Yeah. Well, there you have it. That's 2 weeks in a row. Two disagrees. So
2 disagrees.
Not bad. Speaking of Avatar, so I feel like I've yet to see a movie where underwater scenes are done in a way that is enjoyable to watch, if that makes sense.
What are you feeling when you watch these
They're
underwater
just, like,
scenes?
they're not good to look at. Like, they're dark. They're like Black Panther 2, for example.
Okay.
All the scenes underwater. Now, I understand they're underwater, but the fact of how dark and how gloomy and everything looks, it takes away from the shot, right?
Okay.
And then,
yeah.
But now that's like authentic.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've seen the new Little Mermaid.
I have not.
Now, this looks like they brought the lights we have up here, they brought them underwater in certain scenes and threw them on. So even that's like, for me, it's very distracting when they do underwater scenes. How do you, like, I've not seen Aquaman. I've still not seen that movie.
Really?
Yeah, yep. And now the fact that, that character's kind of canceled out and it's like, and they're releasing the other movie and it's not tied to anything, I kind of want to see it even less. But I've seen some of the underwater shots there. I've seen the ones in Justice League. And there's another movie, the Avatar one was shot underwater. How do you feel about these underwater? Like, do you feel that, or is that just me where it's distracting?
I think it's just you.
Yeah.
Because, underwater scenes are supposed to be distracting. I mean, water is constantly moving. It's constantly throwing shadows. The deeper you go, the darker things it's supposed to get. I mean, unlike Gotham, that's dark all the time. I mean, one of the reasons
thunderstorms like once a week,
right? I think why Batman is so effective in Gotham is because his uniform, that whole gray and blue, was specifically tuned to Gotham's night.
Yeah.
In other words, he could be standing right next to you, and you wouldn't even see him.
Right.
Because it's so dark in Gotham all the time.
Yeah.
So unlike Gotham, underwater scenes have lights refracting. Shadows are constantly moving. So I think considering, I think they do a pretty good job of these underwater scenes. Being underwater at some point, I mean, they pretty much look like what I would expect it to look like. Yeah. I would be surprised if all of a sudden you had something the equivalent of a sun underwater. That would be disturbing.
That's kind of what like the certain scenes in The Little Mermaid feel
really?
like. They just turn the lights on under here.
Dude, you have killed my. I never even thought about going to see the Little Mermaid, so I definitely don't want to see it now.
Dude, the Disney live action movies outside of The Jungle Book have all been pretty much a miss.
Really?
Aladdin was trash. Lion King was just weird because I'm like, I'd rather just watch the cartoon.
Right.
They made the lions like too lifelike.
Right.
Like I want Scar to be red and look like and have black hair.
Right.
I don't want him to just look like a regular lion that's scarred up.
Right.
And the Little Mermaid was it's not Hal, it's Haley Bailey, I think her name is.
Right.
Voice phenomenal. Right. The highlight of that movie is her singing those songs because she sounds enough like the Ariel from the original, but has like a little new,
nuance.
Yes. So great, phenomenal. But a lot of the other, like the movie itself, not needed. It's just leave them alone. These live action. Now, Jungle Book was good because it improved upon the original story.
Right.
I think the Jungle Book story in the live action movie is better than the animated one.
I can agree.
You've seen them both?
I have.
Yeah.
It got me when his friend, the white wolf or whatever, the head was in the guy killed him, had his head. That got me. I was done. I was done.
Dude, that was a great movie.
Yeah.
And that kid was phenomenal. Yep. And the animals looked enough like the cartoon versions, but they still looked real enough. And, I mean, Shere Khan, or what is it, Shere Khan? I forget the tiger's name. Yeah, but dude, he was badass.
Right.
And the whole fight at the end, the fire, like, but then, like, the Lion King one, it's like you're used to the sounds and stuff of the other one. Then all of a sudden you got Beyonce singing. Listen, I love Beyonce, but she don't need to be singing in the fucking Lion King movie.
Right. I don't know. I think it's a whole take on Disney. I think they're kind of eroding their whole what do you call it? The impression of Disney.
Yeah.
However, I think, you know what business McDonald's is in?
What, real estate?
Real estate.
Yeah.
I think Disney's business model is actually music, not visuals necessarily. I mean, because you can be riding down the street and hear a Disney song and you're all in. You know exactly what's going on.
Oh, yeah.
You're less impressed with, the visuals and so on and so forth.
Right. Yeah.
Even though their early adaptations, not the adaptations, their early drawings, their early movies are iconic. I think they're in the music business, and as long as they keep doing the music, like you said, this girl's voice is phenomenal.
Yeah.
I think they'll be all right.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, they definitely made their money somewhere on that.
Yep.
All right.
Oh, dude, you ever bought one of those sales, Disney sales? You know what a sale is? A Disney sale? Wow, man, maybe I should make that like a hidden gem next week.
Right.
A sale is like they make these. It's almost like a 3-dimensional kind of a thing.
Okay.
They come in like this big glass frame. It's pretty amazing stuff. I mean, just
like
check
artwork?
it out. Yeah, just check it out.
Oh shit.
To look up Disney sales.
All right. Cool. All right. Last up. I don't know if that's a thing. Next up, last up, last segment of the week. Our deep dive into Loki, episode 2, season 2. So Loki first episode started off pretty good.
Yep.
You actually ranked it higher than me, first time ever on the show. You know, making a little history here. And you know, it had a nice little cliffhanger. And episode 2. So episode 2, I'm gonna give this one, Adrian. I give this one a 7. I thought this was a little bit better than last week.
Okay.
This episode, we lot happens in this episode. Couple big things. One, they find this this guy Brad Wolf. Okay, he's a film actor, but he's a former TVA agent.
Right.
They sent him out to find Sylvie. Dude's like, fuck that, man. I'm going back to my. I'm going to start my own life on the timeline, right? Which I gotta respect. Okay,
Right.
And he becomes an actor. And he's just living life on the timeline somewhere, right? And then they find him, Loki and Mobius, bring him back. Nice, cool little scene, Loki using his powers. What I liked about this episode, Adrian, is we got to see Loki be Loki.
Right.
You know, a lot of times in this show, it's very TVA based, and he's being this TVA agent. But we got to see him use his powers a little bit, which is cool. So they capture this guy, and they want to they're interrogating him about Sylvie's location, right? So to the point of Loki using his powers, at first they're going back and forth, and they can't get anything out of this guy. They're doing the whole good cop, bad cop routine, right? And this dude starts saying the most offensive shit ever to Loki. He's telling him how he's a loser, like, you know, you let your mom die, like all this like messed up shit, right? And he's trying to get Loki to snap. Loki doesn't. Now, a lot of it's true, though.
Right.
I mean, Loki, up until this show, has pretty much been an asshole.
Right.
You know? So anyways, they can't get him to crack. He starts saying a lot of shit to Mobius. Now, a lot of I love in stories, and especially in comic stories, we've talked about this a lot here with like Thanos, where the person who is made out to be the villain, you understand their plight, right? So this guy's issue was, dude, we were all plucked from the timeline, right? We were brought into the TVA. We don't know the extent of what happened. It seems like memory's been wiped or something, right? And now you are raised and you believe that you're a TVA agent and you're part of the TVA. This is what you always have been and what you always will be, right? Now, after last episode and first season, we learned that these guys have learned that that's not the case. They lived in it. They had a real life somewhere.
Right.
And they were yanked out like, yo, come here.
Basically kidnapped.
They're kidnapped.
Right.
Right? So some of these soldiers, these workers, whatever you want to call them, these agents, they're cool with it, and they just want to continue living their life. And you get some like Brad that want to go actually live a real life on the timeline somewhere. So it's kind of like, I understand that, dude. Like, if I'm him, I want to live my life too, right?
Sure.
I mean, where are you at? You want to be a TV agent? You want to live your life?
Right, right.
So, anyways, they're going back and forth with him. They're not getting anything out. And then Mobius kind of challenges Loki, like, to do something, right? So they go back and they're interrogating him again. And this is where we start seeing Loki become Loki. He brings this big-ass machine into the interrogation booth, right? And this dude who has been very confident the whole time, Brad, and it's funny, the name of the episode is Breaking Brad.
Breaking Brad, right.
So he's been pretty confident that you're not going to, like,
Break
whatever.
me.
You're not going to break me. And now he sees this machine and starts getting nervous. And he's like, Loki, you don't even have the controller for it or whatever. And then he's like, and then the door's locked. Mobius is on the outside of the cell. He can't get in. Kind of reminds me of the Dark Knight interrogation scene.
Right.
When Batman locks the door and starts whooping Joker's ass, and Gordon's like, So anyway, he's interrogating him. He's not getting anything. He pulls out this little controller device, and he starts messing with some buttons, and it creates this box around him, around Brad, like an energy field. And Loki basically ends up like almost crushing the guy, and then he finally confesses, and he knows where Sylvie is. The whole deal. I thought that I love Loki getting a chance to be Loki, like still kind of that evil, because Brad made a comment to him, "You're not a hero, you're a villain," right? Like he made that comment to him on there, and then Loki kind of threw that back at him when he was about to start messing with him. He goes, "No, I'm not a hero, dude. I'm a villain." Another thing that was funny was after the first time that they try to interrogate him and Mobius slaps the guy, Loki's like coaching Mobius on his anger. Like, ain't that some shit? Loki, after all this time, he's the one coaching him on his anger.
Right.
And he mentions, he goes, "I lost my temper, plenty of times." And this is what I thought was cool. It was a callback to the first Avengers movie where he goes, "One time I was so mad at my dad and my brother, I went down to Earth. He's I attacked the Avengers in New York with an army of aliens because I was just so mad." He goes, "I tried to control Tony with the Mind Stone. That didn't work, so I threw him off a building." Right. It was cool to hear like his perspective of that first battle, which was pretty cool. So we talk about like you always say this, when continuity makes sense, right? Like I thought that was a cool callback.
Yeah, I mean, even psychotics, rationalized,
right?
Even though it's not what we would consider rationalization, no. To invade a planet with an alien force.
You're mad at your dad.
I mean, that's a little over the top,
A little bit.
Like Garvik, Fury, you didn't find a planet for my entire race of people, so I'm just going to take over yours and kill everybody. Ridiculous. But it seeing Loki, I don't even see. You talk about Loki good and evil. I don't even see Loki as good or evil, a villain or a superhero. He's like Earth. Yeah. He's just there. Yeah. And in some kind of way, he's like corrective order. Yeah. Like when you go out and like you see like a lot of National Geographics and these guys with these cameras, they watching like a lion, hunt down a baby giraffe or whatever. And you feel so bad about the giraffe. I mean, I've literally seen like a lion pull up a giraffe up into a tree. I mean, that's crazy. Cray. But you want to interfere, you want to do something, but that's like the natural order of things. Right. And I kind of see Loki as that force. He's like a benign, every once in a while he'll, get upset about some things, like let's say a tsunami. Yeah. Right. Or volcano, right? Natural order of things, but I think he's more benign than either good or evil. So I mean, that's my take.
Got it. I feel like he was evil when we first saw him in the MCU, and I feel like he's had a pretty good character arc. That's why in my agree to disagree, I said he's a better character than Thor, because they ruined Thor, right? And now I think I think they could resurrect him. I think they could bring him back with the right story. But with Love and Thunder, they fucking ruined him.
I think Loki is a better character than Thor overall because he's more dynamic. Thor is more, because remember, Thor is like a college frat. Right. Yeah,
he's a bro.
So he's spoiled and all this other kind of stuff. I mean, great character, very powerful. But I think that Loki is a more dynamic. He has more range than Thor. He's willing to do things that Thor is not. And because he has that leeway. Thor, he supposedly Prince of Asgard. He had responsibilities. Now Asgard is gone, Ragnarok and all that. But he still had have these mental blocks like Superman, Batman. They have these mental blocks that prevent them from extending their range. Loki, he don't have those blocks.
Right. So Brad gives up her location. And they go to Oklahoma and find her working in a McDonald's in the 80s.
Right. Speaking of McDonald's.
Right. Which I thought was really cool. I thought they did it, like, seeing that 80s style McDonald's was cool on screen. Sometimes I think the little forced marketing is stupid. Like in in Infinity War, where you see the Rocket Mortgage sign just fly through and like everybody drives an Audi for some reason,
Right.
that type of shit. But this I thought was very good, like brand inclusion. Like they just, he works at an old McDonald's.
Right.
That was cool.
Like the only good thing I liked about Captain Marvel was when she crash landed in the blockbusters. You know, there was a quick
That was a good one.
flashback for me. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, hey, the best part of that movie is the fact that it takes place in the 90s.
Right.
So anyways, they show up there. Loki's trying to talk to Sylvie, and she's like, in 5 minutes I'm on my break. Like, she's living her life now. She's working at McDonald's, living a regular life. So she's kind of doing the same thing. And Brad's acting really weird here. He keeps going, I want to leave, I want to leave, I want to leave. And what's his name? Mobius keeps, bringing up the fact that, like, are you setting us up? He keeps asking him, like, is this a setup? Is this a setup? It ends up being a setup. But Loki's trying to convince Sylvie to kind of come back with him and fix everything. And she's like, I just want to live my life here. Now, he brings up something that happened in the first episode, Adrian. If you remember the part where Loki goes into the future and he saw Sylvie and then he gets pruned.
Yes.
So he brings up that, and Sylvie at first doesn't believe him, like, oh, now you go into the future? He's like, no, I did, and I saw you at the headquarters, like, trying to, tear it down. And she's like, I want nothing to do with the TVA or whatnot. But then what they find out is that the reason why this dude Brad wanted to leave, and he kept saying, bring me back to the sacred timeline, because the TVA, remember in the first episode when all those TVA agents started going through the portals, and they said they were looking for Sylvie?
Right.
But I said last week, there's no way
they got that kind of a force looking for Sylvie. Yep.
So we learn that, and dude, this is like some diabolical shit. We learn that what they're doing, they're pruning timelines. So they're showing up, and they showed up to the McDonald's one, and they're like just dropping these like bombs, these devices that prune those timelines from existence because of the timeline splitting, which essentially are killing millions of people.
So their job isn't to monitor and prevent fractions of timelines. Their job is to create fractions of timelines the way that they think they should be developing.
No, right now they're trying to remove every fraction that was developed and just keep the one sacred timeline. Yeah, because
but isn't the sacred timeline, they call it sacred because it can exist in the past and the future linearly, in a straight line, basically.
I think so, yeah.
Which is unlike all the other timelines. If you go back, like if the Flash goes back and he changes something, then it affects maybe the past and the future. In the linear, in the sacred timeline, when you go back and forth, it doesn't matter what you do. It's still going to be the outcome of whatever it is that you did.
Right, because what Endgame established that when you go back, it just branches another timeline. It doesn't change the future of that timeline.
Right.
But we talked about this last week, in the TVA, when they went back in time, they did change the future. When they went back to my boy Obi and told him to make a device, and then they come back minutes later, but it's actually 20-something years later, and he makes the device. Right. So maybe it's because it's the main timeline. Who the hell knows? Or maybe they changed their whole fucking time, travel rules because they'll
it's
do
more
that
entertaining.
Too. Yeah, exactly. It fits the plot, fits the storyline. But anyways, they're literally deleting these branching timelines that are killing millions of people like that. It's so funny. We talk about like the high evolutionary or even what Thanos did.
Right. I was just thinking about
this. This seems a lot worse.
Oh yeah, that's absolutely more worse. It's like, we're over here worried about Thanos killing half the universe, and these clowns are going around popping off multiple universes. Exactly. At their discretion.
Right. Dude, they're moving around like UPS with like their packages. They're just like making deliveries and shit. Like, oh, here you go, 2-day air. Let's delete this timeline.
Wow.
That's crazy. Dude.
That's deep. That's deep.
Yep. So we see that happening. And, then they learn that they weren't just looking for Sylvie. They're out there deleting all these timelines. And Sylvie ends up finding, and I'm skipping ahead a lot, to be honest, because I've watched this twice this week because it's just been a crazy week. So I watched half of it, fell asleep, and then picked up, watched the other half. But Miss Minutes is gone. And they made some reference to trying to bring her back. And there was a reference to He Who Remains, several in this episode, and it kind of sounds like they need him now.
Right.
There's a temp pad or something that only he can control or some shit, and I'm sure again, we're not experts here.
Right.
But Sylvie ends up with that temp pad in her possession at the end of the episode at the McDonald's again. But they've made some comments that they kind of need him. So I feel like next couple episodes, because we obviously know Jonathan Majors is in this and the character, and we're supposed to see some other variants, I feel like we're going to get into this part where they're now looking for another variant of He Who Remains to help them, because he essentially is the one who created the TVA. So now, saying all that, I know why. So there's a part in the earlier episode, Obi. He has one of those temporal looms, like the things they created in the first episode to patch the timeline or whatnot. He has another one, and he goes to use it to repair one of. This was before we learned that they were deleting the timelines, but he used it to repair one of the timelines, and it didn't work. It said that it had the wrong DNA or something, and he used his own Obi, and he's like, he's the one who wrote the manual to the TVA, all this other shit, and they find out that they need Jonathan Majors' character, He Who Remains. So that's the hook. We're like, oh shit, now we need him to fix this. So basically, this episode, everything's going to shit at the TVA. You got a bunch of the TVA working against Mobius and his little crew, and Loki and Sylvie. Sylvie doesn't really want to help them, so Sylvie ends up back at her McDonald's at the end. Like, she does not want anything to do with this right now.
Right.
But she also has a temp pad, so we'll see what the hell happens next episode. So I thought this was a good episode, man. I thought that just that whole pruning of the timelines really brings up, I guess, the severity, the impact that this show could have.
I'm wondering if they are going to, how can I say this, make this so complicated that it's uninteresting. I mean, at what point? So you got MCU, DCU, and then you introduce, variants.
Yep.
And multiverses. Now you got multiple timelines and the cause and effect of destroying and creating different timelines, or at the very least changing them. I mean, how big can they make this? And this kind of goes back to some of the points that we were making earlier about superpowers. It's like, you take somebody like a Franklin Richards, or even a Galactus, and you can't properly, or Dark Phoenix, you can't properly convey their power set in a movie, right? It just looks crazy.
Yeah.
So now you got all this other variant stuff going, or varying, to keep it separate from the Loki variants. You got all these varying things happening at a level that's so high level. I mean, you're already dealing with basically gods at this point. He that remains, or whatever.
Yeah, who remains. Yeah.
I mean, he's above and beyond what we consider Loki as being a god, right?
Yeah.
God, Loki and Thor and Odin and all these people. So how high are they gonna set this bar in these movies to where they just start losing people simply because it's not that the movie isn't interesting? It's just that it's such high level. It's too much to think about.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
It's like you want to watch a movie that's kind of interesting, I got to think about it a little bit. Oh, who done it kind of thing.
Right.
But if I got to figure out the entire movie, that's exhausting. Dude, I'm coming out. I want to go take a nap.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just exhausted.
And then, God forbid, you do doze off for a minute or two. Then it's like you got to restart the whole damn show because you don't know what the hell you missed.
Exactly. I mean, it's like you missed the whole thing, and then the directors come out. Well, it's your fault that you didn't understand the movie. Whatever.
Yeah. Hey, we'll put a pin in the deep dive, but that's let's discuss that a little bit, because that is something that I go back and forth with. Like it's. I understand that they've been telling us this story for almost 15 years now. Right. So there's a lot to it. And this, we talked about the soft reboot that is rumored, and it's almost like maybe that can't come quick enough. Because to your point, like if I jumped into this thing phase one and the Avengers movie, the first one was being released, it'd be nice if I saw Thor, Iron Man, Hulk, Captain America, But if I didn't, I would have still enjoyed the movie. Right. If you were to watch even this show and you've not seen the 32 other movies,
right.
That's not even exaggeration. That's a confirmed number.
Right.
Or I don't know how many shows there are.
Just watch Secret Invasion with Gaia at the end, and you'll understand everything.
She has 32 power. I think one for each movie. That's
right,
what they did.
right.
Figured it out.
There you go.
But if you were to just, like this show, for example, Loki, if you were to start this show with no previous knowledge to anything that happened in this universe, you'd be lost.
You'd be lost.
You know, and I don't know, is that a good – now, thankfully, they've had a large audience for a long time. So maybe they're just counting on that, right? Our audience has been with us for 15 years, so they should know all this. But what about the new eyes?
Exactly. You're not explaining enough, or you're kind of coming out the gate too high of a level. It's like all of a sudden, like in one of the last Predator movies, the guy woke up, he's in free fall.
Right.
It's like, well, you understand that where you are, you know, you understand you're in some kind of air, you understand that you're falling, you understand what's eventually going to happen, but you don't understand how you got there. Right. You don't understand why you're there and what's the whole purpose of all this stuff. Do I die? Do I open the parachute? Do I even know how to open the parachute? It's like these movies. It's like, dude, this is so complex. You've thrown so much at me. All of a sudden, I just woke up and I'm in a multiverse, multiple timeline with gods and people. We don't even know how old they are because we don't know how many times their mind has been wiped, right? And they're now remembering stuff from the past. So they don't even know where they are. They don't even know how old they are. Right. They don't know how long they've been doing this stuff. Hundreds of years, maybe 50 days. They don't know. Right. It's so much complexity being thrown all at once that I think that ultimately, unless they do a reboot, I mean, they're gonna lose people, old and new, because it's just too many numbers first thing in the morning. A friend of mine told me, it was like, no math in the morning. No math in the morning. It's just too much all at once.
Yeah, no, it is, and it's so much that you have to remember and keep track of to know what's happening in this current, show. Right. It's like you watch 32 movies before you go see the next one. Like, shit, dude, that's a struggle. Right. Because even as someone, I've seen these movies several times, like I'm sure you have, right? But there's a lot of things I forget. Right. Like I've rewatched them a handful of times, and every time I rewatch them, it's like I'm like, yo, they changed the movie. I don't remember it starting like that. I don't remember this part. You get more out of it, but to have to do that so often, or what if you missed a few? Like I still have not seen what is it? I mean, I saw The Eternals, but I kind of fell asleep through most of it. But there's still some movies that I've not seen yet. There's still some shows I've not finished Ms. Marvel. I recommended it to you and not finished it. Right. There's still parts that, so then when you go watch something new, you're going to be lost. Right. If you've not seen everything. And it shouldn't feel like homework. It shouldn't feel like, dude, to go to the movie, I have to check this off, read this book. Like, you know who does it well? It's a completely different form of entertainment, but WWE. They are the longest episodic running TV shows in the history of TV. SmackDown, Raw. And I'm a big fan, so I know a lot about the behind-the-scenes stuff. And their plan with all their shows is to have something for new people, for fans that have been here for a long time, for casuals, like for every. So it's like what does it do? It does water down how deep and intricate the stories can be at times. Now they do have some but they do a lot of like recaps and stuff like that. So if you were to turn it on today and you've not watched forever, there's just going to be recaps. In a few minutes, you're going to know what the hell's going on. Gotcha. You ain't going to know everything, So, and I don't know how you do that with movies and shows. Now with the shows, you can do recaps, but who the hell wants to? You don't want to watch an Avengers movie and then have a 15-minute recap of everything that happened. It's just too much. Right. It's one thing to recap a show or two from the beginning of the season, but to recap 15 years, 32 movies, it's like, what I'd love to know is, how the hell does Marvel keep track of all this?
AI, apparently. I don't know. And then it depends on why you're going to the movies. Yeah. Are you going to be entertained? Or are you going because you like Robert Downey Jr.? Or do you like Iron Man? Or are you going to watch the movies for the Easter eggs? because apparently there's a lot of those in
Absolutely.
these Loki series, the McDonald's thing, all the posters in the alley when they show up in
Yep.
London.
Yep.
I mean, so it's like it's so much. So not only again timelines, variants, multiverses, and then all the Easter eggs, and then you're killing off beloved actors
Right.
playing these roles. You putting in all these silly, shitty people that do stuff. You're raising the dead, to come back and play these roles that they shouldn't be playing. So it's just so much. Please, a matter of fact, please reboot. Please reboot.
Yeah.
Make this some kind of normal, and then you'll pick up bigger, better audiences because you're putting out better content. The best movies I've seen were the least technological. And they're just trying to throw so much tech, so much special effects into this stuff. It's just that they're losing the story in the movies. So anyway, so the movies, the big screen, make that the big stuff, and use the timeline, the backstories, the time splits, and all that interaction. Leave that for like the Netflix platforms,
Right.
and I think you'll be more successful.
Yeah. It's like they're doing. I looked at it like this: they're doing what they did with comics, actual comic books, and they've taken that strategy to screen, where comics, you have your main stories, right? Like you have the Avengers comic, you have Iron Man comic, right? And then there's other little offshoots. There's Ironheart. There's the Avengers West Coast. There's in DC you got Justice League, you got Batman, you got Teen Titans.
Right.
Now all these stories are happening in the same continuity, right? But I don't need to read all the Teen Titans to know what's going on in Justice League, right? Just like if let's say I'm not a Batman fan, I'm only a Justice League fan. I don't need to read all the Batman comics, but if you do, there's added benefit. There's more story.
Correct.
There's more substance. That's kind of what they're doing here with the movies and the shows, but it seems like you have to watch them. Like if you don't watch Secret Invasion, do you understand what's going on in the Marvels?
Right.
If you didn't watch WandaVision, do you understand why she's the villain in Doctor Strange?
Right. No, you don't.
You have to.
And you're right. So, I mean, well, it sounds like they're not doing what they're doing in the comics.
Right. I think they attempted.
Right. But beside the fact that you have more time to digest, I mean, you got a piece of paper, you can look at it. I didn't understand that, so let me go back a couple of pages.
Right.
They put the full story in the comics so you can digest it.
Yeah.
Because these things are flashing in front of you. And you don't have a rewind remote control in the movie theater.
Right.
So if you missed it, you have to go back to the movie or wait for it to come out on a platform in order to watch it. But you're right; they don't make those they don't make the movies independent with a hook. They make the movie completely dependent on some spider web of other shows, and then make it your responsibility to go figure out which one it is. Hence, put tags in the movies. So when you're watching a movie, you can, just like you can, you see something that comes up and you can press it and buy the actor's clothes.
Yeah.
You see a little tag, press that, and they'll take you to the movie that explains that scene in that movie, so it kind of makes sense if I want to go back and watch it.
Yeah. It's like they do it in the comics, or they used to, where like something will be happening, and there'll be a little bubble that's like, for more info on this, read Avengers 204.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you see it all the time in comic books, especially older ones. But yeah, I think you're right. I think it's too much too fast. I think, if and it's hard because actors age, and if you want to give me so much content, you got to get it out quick. So I get that, but these same stories, if they were stretched out over 5-10 years versus, I mean, dude, Secret Invasion, and I'm not complaining because we give a shit to watch. It's the catch-22.
Right.
Secret Invasion ended a few months ago. We were just saying the other day, there's not been shit to really review. Now we got Loki and Marvels, but it's also like, dude, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's so I don't know. Am I fucking talking out of both ends? Maybe. But I guess what the conclusion is, we're all up for the reboot, and I actually can't wait for it. Right. Before we talk about it.
I am excited enough to continue on this journey as I have been for 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
It's always good to see, but just like, I like certain artists and colorists and storytellers versus others. I like certain movies and certain movie styles versus, other movie styles. Now, unfortunately, we got to deal with the directors. You know, no time in history has the behind the scenes people taking more of the news footage than the actors and the characters in the comics.
Right.
You know, we should be talking about Wolverine, Professor X, you know, Superman, Batman, Aquaman, not Jason Momoa, Henry Cavill.
Right.
And we certainly shouldn't be talking about James Gunn,
Right.
you know, and Feige and all these other people.
Yeah.
You know, let's keep, at least for me,
Yeah.
you know, let's keep this, you know, above board where it's like, let's discuss the characters and, you know, how they, and for the most part, I mean, some of these characters, they affect your lives. I mean, I used to, you know, Reed Richards was like a father figure to me when I was growing up, you know. Tony Stark was that spark that inspired me, you know, when I was growing up, you know. So, you know, those kind of inspirations are kind of falling to the wayside now, I think.
Yeah.
Because there's so much and they're trying to put out so much. They're trying to make so much more money. And I kind of like think they're writing themselves into oblivion.
Yeah. Yep. No, so we solved it here. Hey, Marvel, we agree. Do the reboot. Secret Wars, great time to do it.
Right.
And that, I mean, God only knows when that movie's coming out now with all the strikes and shit. I think the last time we talked, was it 27 maybe? Something like that. But anyway, but like you said, hey, I'm here for the ride. We'll be here for the ride.
Right.
You know, we'll try to keep up as much as we can. I guess that's kind of where I'm at now. I'm trying to watch.
Right. I'm trying to watch
something. I don't know. Am I ever going to go watch and, you know, finish Ms. Marvel? Probably not.
Right.
You know, it was good. I skipped to the last episode, saw the part about the mute, and it's like then it's like that. Our you know, in the other audience, is it just people that are tuned in for the main story, and they're watching Ant-Man just to see how it connects with the overarching story.
Right.
You know, but there's a lot of that too. Like, I just want to know what the main story is.
Right. Because they're kind of forcing you to go and deep dive into all this other shit. Yeah. And just to figure out, you know, like you go and watch a movie, you want to be satisfied. Like, wow, that was a great movie.
Right.
But it's like, you don't want to walk out confused, having, you know, passed through the emergency room, gave up your kidney just to be able to afford the popcorn and the candy and the Coke just to go sit down in a freezing ass room. You know, then you come out minus a kidney and you're still confused about, well, I mean, what really just happened? Right. You know, those days of, wow, that was a great movie. Let me go and tell my friends about it. Now it's like, I got to watch it again to kind of figure out what happened. I don't like that. I don't like that. And that's where we are now. Unsatisfied, basically.
Basically, they need to simplify it. They need to bring it back to the basics.
Bring it back.
Yep. I mean, that was, I talk about the Batman a lot on here. It was a grounded movie for everything, because you can still do, we talked about being very nuanced. You can do nuanced and keep it basic.
Right.
That was a good story. It was somewhat of a crime thriller, right?
Right.
Now, obviously, we knew Riddler was the killer, but the way it was the way you were kind of strung along. You didn't need any previous knowledge to watch it. Now, I know it was the first movie, but we're talking a 3.5 hour movie, damn near.
Right.
That didn't feel that long. But then we have some movies that are, you know, 2 hours, and you're like, God, can this thing finish, right?
Right.
Or like, you know, you're cramming everything into the first 10 minutes of the movie that we have to try to understand and remember. You know, I love that, like, Batman kind of fed you as it went on.
Right.
You think about a movie like Doctor Strange, where we learn about the whole multiverse like this, like, oh, this girl can travel to the multiverse, she has this power, and all of a sudden Doctor Strange is killing her, by the way, and hey, welcome to the movie. Right. Like, oh, shit, all that's been going on. I had no idea. And that's when I think sometimes they don't utilize the shows, like, as you say they should, where there could be maybe more important, like, don't make the show standalone. Have the important shit happen in there that actually does affect the movie. You know, like Secret Invasion, you waste this whole show, and then, like, I brought this up on here before. Do you think they purposely create this show so that you can ignore them? Because if you don't watch Secret Invasion, Nick Fury's in space at the beginning of the show, right? He leaves, has this whole adventure on Earth, and then he's back up in that motherfucker when it's over. Right. Ready for the next movie. Right. You know, like.
And why? I mean, if you like Nick Fury, you know, why is he in space? You know, why? What was his role? What got him there? Kind of a deal. And actually, Nick Fury, I would have liked him to stay like that shield lover guy. Yeah. I think they've integrated him too much into the comics. And again, you know, like we said, you know, they've kind of, like, you know, they've taken all the mystery out of Fury. Now he's like this old dying dude.
Right.
Not Sam Jackson, just the character
Right.
in general. They made him too weak, and they've taken him out of our mind, however we think about him, and made him like this.
Oh yeah,
pussy or
hey,
whatever.
Sam Jackson, he knocked it out of the park.
Oh, yeah.
With what he was given.
Right.
I mean, there were some really good scenes in that show. The whole Rhodey,
Right.
Nick Fury scene when they're at the table when we learn he's a Skrull, but it was just execution, and I really think the end fumbled that. Like, if the ending was better, I'd had a much better opinion on this show. Right. But it leads to that, to that question: are the shows designed so that they can be entirely skipped and you can still watch the main movies? I don't know.
The only thing that I think that I got out of Secret Invasion is I'm curious as to what happened with Rhodey. When did he actually get caught, and what were the implications? Does he know that Tony's dead?
Right.
That's the only thing I got out of that whole 6 episodes that was 13 minutes long. And then Guy came out at the end with 32 powers.
Right.
So,
and then now the other thing that we've not seen play out is in that show, there was like a world war going on pretty much between Russia and U.S., right? And a lot of people were killed. Like, we still don't know the implications of that.
Right.
That's got to have some effect on the MCU in some way, shape, or form.
Like, you mean when Gravik lit that bomb off?
Yeah.
And now we all of a sudden nobody knows what's going on because they're not accepting that this was they didn't know that this was
aliens.
The aliens behind it.
Right.
So they just assumed that it was the U.S. attacking Russia. So you're right. They didn't play that out at all.
So who knows? We could be talking all kinds of shit here, and this show is going to set up the whole next phase.
Right.
And then we'll be back here. Secret Invasion was the... No. You still can't escape the fact that, like you said, this chick walks out of here with 32 motherfucking powers, and she's still walking down the street.
Right. that would be like saying the baby in the microwave in the Flash grew up to be a mutant, and he replaced Superman, and that made the Flash movie better.
One of those babies is Damian Wayne. There you go. And on that, the show's over.
Right.
But anyway, well, next week we'll be back. Episode 3, Loki, and then the week after that, Adrian, we have our long Halloween episode.
Yes.
So I don't have you started reading it? Are you waiting till the week of? Where are you at?
I am going to start this week because fall is here. The leaves are changing.
Yes.
It is pumpkin, turkey, goblin season, and I'm loving it.
Yep.
So I'm gonna kick back with probably some nice cup of Joe.
There you go.
My big chair, stare out the window, and read the comics, man.
There you go. Are you when you read like the graphic novels, are you a one shot, like I'm going to sit here and power through this? Do you read issue by issue? What do you normally do?
Well, traditionally, I didn't have a choice to power through them because they didn't come out like they probably do
back
now.
in the day, yeah.
You had to wait. They built up that anticipation, right?
Yeah.
And it was like
I didn't experience that.
No?
No.
It was like once a month or once every 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
I mean, it just depends on when they came out with it. But man, you put down that comic, you was like ready for the next one. It built up that anticipation. It made you part of that character, and it also gave you time to digest, to relate to, because again, just like the movies, every time you go back and read it, and you will go back and read it, you pick up something different, in the thing. So you had time for you in this book to become one for that month while you waited for that next one to come out.
Right.
So it wasn't powering through it. It was just like you go through it because you're excited about it. Yeah. And then you probably reread it a little slower, and then you sit there and you marinate it.
Yeah.
Until the next one came out. So that was my experience.
Yeah.
And we didn't have, animated series to kind of like distract you over here. You didn't have the movies to distract you over there. That's why when, Blade came out, the first Superman starts coming out, those were big deals back then. Yeah. I mean, I can't even watch those movies now because the resolution is so bad. But, they were big deals back then. Now it's just, whatever. Yeah. But no powering through them. It's just like you read it, you sat there, you waited for the next one, you consumed that bad boy, and then you sat there and you waited for the next one.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, I didn't. Now, you were talking earlier about the turnstile. I remember going my mom grocery shopping,
Right.
and Stop and Shop, and they had a turnstile just like the pharmacies where they just had the recent stuff. And I remember going there and trying to read all of them before we left. And then I remember the anticipation of like, yo, when's this next issue coming out? Like, because I want to go grocery shopping again to read it because I couldn't buy them back then.
Right.
You know?
What's interesting about the turnstile is that when you start reading them, they had turnstiles in the grocery stores. They didn't have turnstiles in grocery stores. There was two ways you could get comics. Either you walked into some drugstores that sold them, and a drugstore back then was like a little. It's like the new gas stations that they have now without the pumps.
Yeah.
You walked in, it was a drugstore, but it was also like a little convenience store. And right in the front, they had the turnstiles, right? So they put the candy and the turnstiles, the comic books, right next to the front door.
Yeah.
Because the kids,
right.
To get the kids going to stay longer. The parents going to buy more stuff,
Absolutely.
Right? So I never saw them in grocery stores.
Okay.
The other way you can get them is that you can order them. You get like it's like a Sears catalog. You can subscribe to them, and they monthly. You actually wrote out checks and you sent in, and you got the
you
stuff.
get them 2 monthly.
No credit cards, nothing like that. So that was pretty much the only way that you got it. And then where I grew up, there was no comic book store. Period. Okay. You could find used comics in a used bookstore.
Really?
But there was no comic book store like they are now. So it was very limited. So in other words, like the 1800s when the father went around the world and he came home every 3 years or something like that. When he gave that little toy to his son or that little doll or that little whatever to his kids, they held on to that shit forever. I mean, it was priceless. Yeah. That's how we looked at comics now. Wow. Fast forward to today, I mean, you're getting stuff every day, and the kids just don't give a shit about what you get because they know they're going to get something else tomorrow. Yeah. So we were very coveted, very limited access. So a whole different way about how we consumed or even saw comics when I was growing up.
Because even this story was released over the course of a year. So that's cool, and we'll talk about it when we review it. But The Long Halloween was one issue a month for a year before anyone knew who the killer was and the whole deal. And I didn't experience it like that. I didn't read it when it first came out. I read it as a graphic novel, and I couldn't put it down. So that's why I was curious: are you gonna go issue by issue, or are you gonna just
those graphic novels that you're talking about, where they put like 6 or 10 books in one book?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, that was extremely rare.
Yeah.
That was extreme. Well, it was extremely rare because we had limited availability to begin with. So we didn't even know. It wasn't mainstream like it is now.
Yeah.
Kind of now a graphic novel is expected. Back then was like, oh shit, graphic novel just hit the street. Yeah. Then everybody goes and buy it. Right. We paid $4 for it, maybe $5. Okay. Because back then comics were. I think I stopped buying comics when they hit like $1.25. I was like, oh, this is too expensive. I can't do that. 50 cents, 75 cents, something like that. Yeah. At least that's how I used to pick them up. But graphic novels were rare. They weren't kind of expected or there was no, timeline to them. So we rarely got an opportunity to read something like cover to cover all the information all at one time. Right. We had to wait.
So do you enjoy it now?
I do now. Yeah. Again, but I'm also more picky now.
Right.
I like graphic novels where the art is good. Reminiscent of how I grew up with the art. I don't like a lot of this flat 2D kind of Pokemon kind of art. I just don't deal with that. I like the shadows. Yeah. The grays, the subtle colors and all that.
That's why I knew you would like the Hush one.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean that. And this one now, Long Halloween, I don't know if you've, peeked through it yet, but it's very different art style.
Right.
It's not, Tim Sale uses like negative space a lot. A lot of the panels only have a different tones of the same color or like 2 or 3 colors. Like it's uses like darkness, shadows and stuff. It's really cool. Yeah. I've always loved the art in this book.
Yeah. I plan on diving into it. And I'm actually looking forward to it. So I seen the show.
You saw the 2 movies, right?
Those are very good. I always like the Batman shows. I love DC animation.
Yes.
I mean, they do such a good job, unlike Marvel animation.
Right.
But of course, DC makes shitty movies versus
Yeah,
Marvel's movies.
What if they just work together? Like,
they might as well.
You know
I
what I mean?
The Flash stole so much shit from the Spider-Man and everything else. They might as well. I'm sure it's the same writer.
Let DC do the Marvel fucking animated movies, and let Marvel give Kevin Feige, fire James Gunn, and let Kevin Feige take that over.
Right.
And then whoever's running DC's animation, let them take over Marvel's.
Why don't they just agree to have the same writer that wrote, the new Spider-Man animation? Just let him write for everybody.
Yeah.
Give him assistance where he needs it.
Right.
And they just pick the movies that they want to get. I mean, they kind of doing it anyway. It's best to borrow or to pay for the content than to just outright steal it. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at a DC movie that looks like and every scene reminds me of a Marvel movie.
Yep.
I hate that.
Yep. Exactly. So, well, there you have it. We will review that. We'll have our long Halloween deep dive in 2 weeks.
Yep.
We may have a special guest on with us that week. We'll see if he's around. My man Chris from the first night.
Yep.
But either way, we will be here and we'll talk about both the movies, the book, what was better. I really enjoyed the films too. I saw I read the comic a handful of times before they even came out. So I had that experience first. But I even like that. Now, the art style of the movies, it's not similar to the comic, correct, but I do like the art style of those movies. Right. It's different than any other DC animated film. Mm-hmm. It's almost like it feels almost 3D-ish at times, but just the shadows and the textures are very unique in that. Like it feels. I mean, they do a good job of portraying Gotham in most animated movies, but this one I feel like it's even better.
I like the classic Gotham, just like. I like the classic Batman costume, the gray and the blue.
Gray and the blue, yeah.
Yeah, I like that better than this stealth. It's like it just gets too much.
Yeah.
By the time they got to your boy, who played not Rob Pattinson.
Oh,
Ben Affleck.
Yeah.
By the time you get to Ben Affleck, man, it's like I can't even see him.
It was like a transformer.
Exactly. It's like it was too much.
Like, yo, is that Bumblebee or fucking Batman? Who is that?
Right. So, I mean, it's like they rely more on the tech now than they do, and they kind of like taken away from Batman's actual skill. Mm-hmm. He is skillful mentally, emotionally, and physically.
Right.
But they're trying to have the suit do all the work. Yeah. Which is, it's almost like we're going to make a AI plane and let the AI drive the plane, which takes out all the nuance and capability of a human. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that you can't have AI planes, but in certain circumstances, maybe not. Right. At least not now.
Right. Do you think they should upgrade heroes' suits every movie? Or do you think that they should, like, perfect example, Batman, Robert Pattinson one. Mm-hmm. That suit, there is armor to it.
Right.
It's not as over the top as Ben Affleck's. Mm-hmm. But I think if they were to add anything else to it, I think it'd be a little much. Like, I kind of like leave it where it's at. Like, that one, I would not be opposed to having the same suit in the next movie.
Mm-hmm. The suits. Okay, so the only characters that should always be upgrading is Iron Man, Cyborg, people that have technology.
Yeah.
Dr. Doom.
Right.
Even Dr. Doom's uniform, he's mostly cloaked.
Yeah.
But they try to make his suit, more bulky and this and that. So the reason I like the old Batman is because he didn't have any visible armor.
Yeah.
It was the gray and blue, cotton.
Right.
Or whatever it was made out of, right? Maybe some Kevlar, but his skill was at the forefront. Mm-hmm. His technology was his utility belt. That always changed.
Yep.
You expect that to change.
Right.
But it's a simple utility belt. Not simple like, ours, but simple in relation to, everything else that's going on. So I would expect that to change for him. So to answer your question, no, I don't think that the suits should change every episode. I mean, like I said, the tech guys, sure, they can add some stuff. Iron Man, he has 30, 40, 50 suits.
Right.
But I don't think the Batman should evolve every time. Superman's suit shouldn't evolve, every movie, especially when you're playing the same character. Maybe throw in a little bit if you change universes or something like that. Not even actors,
right?
But universes or something dramatic would have to happen in order for a suit change for me.
Yeah, but like you said before, it's a business.
It's a business,
and they got to sell new toys. They got to sell new hats and shirt. And dude, if they don't change the Spider-Man, why would I buy a new shirt, right?
Right.
I got to buy the new one. So yeah, I agree. I don't think they should, but I think they're going to continue just for that. They're going to change it enough because they got to make that money somewhere, dude.
Right. Well, I mean, and then when you put Michael Keaton, you superimpose Michael Keaton's head on a bulky, AI generated costume, it kind of doesn't matter.
Right.
Because you really don't expect much from a 900-year-old person playing a character. So it kind of makes sense that way. And again, it's all marketing, but it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. 100%. Well, there you have it. We're solving all the world's problems here on Only Comics, where we're not experts. We're just fans.
Yep.
And we get together once a week here on Only Comics, Adrian. We take a ride on this multiverse of comics, and it was a blast like always.
Yeah.
And we fight off stupid opinions and sometimes good ones, and we agree, we disagree, we agree to disagree now.
Right.
And so we're 80% on that right now. 80% in agreement the past 2 weeks. So I'm gonna dig deep this week. I'm gonna find some things that I know, But I knew you wouldn't appreciate the Matrix one.
Yeah, well, it's not appreciated. It's just that it's a different mind bend on it for me. But again, I mean, if you look at the first one, I completely disagree with you.
Yeah.
If you look at it as a whole, I definitely agree with you.
And that's the beauty about what we do here. We agree to disagree. He's not going to change my mind on that one. We do change each other's minds sometimes, but not on that one.
Right.
So, anyways, we'll be back next week. Loki, episode 3. You know what we should do? We're talking about all this, the MCU, and how there's 32 movies and I think 400 shows maybe, give or take, somewhat. Let's we talk about rewatches. Let's do a hypothetical. If we were to rewatch, and then we can come up with a certain number of skips and go through each phase. And I'd go, hey, Adrian, phase 1, if you could skip one movie in your rewatch, which one would it be?
Right.
So we can have some fun with, hey, if I don't need to see that movie again, or I would. So I'll come up with the skips.
Okay.
And I'll get that to you. And next week we'll go through each of ours and compare. Hey, phase 1, I'd watch these 3, skip this one. And we have a limited amount of skips, though, for the entire 32 movies. So maybe we'll just do shows as a whole because you don't want to break down.
Maybe we decide that we don't need to skip any of them. Maybe they're all important.
Maybe
even Secret Invasion.
I would definitely skip that on the rewatch. I can promise you this: that's not going to happen.
Right.
But hey, tune in next week and find out what I skip, what Adrian skips. But we appreciate you guys joining us, taking this wild ride with us every week. Adrian, thanks for coming in.
As always.
And we will be back next week on Only Comics, where we discuss comics and only comics and sometimes some other stuff.